be up to 70% cheaper. BYD is also rolling out its first utility-scale sodium battery energy storage system, or
70% cheaper? They take more than 50% out of the market at that number. All right, welcome to the second video. This is something that I saw pop up a little bit ago, and I wanted to just started to watch it, and I went, wait a second, maybe I should react to this. Battery chemistry isn't my expertise, but I have spent, I don't know how many dozens of hours looking into it, which sounds just about as nerdy as it is. So let's go ahead and see why the biggest battery company is betting against lithium. And you can see on the screen they have sodium. So sodium ion batteries. We'll see what they're saying here.
Sodium ion battery technology isn't exactly new, but something interesting is happening. CATL, the world's biggest lithium battery manufacturer, says that up to half the market could switch to sodium. That's right, the biggest name in lithium batteries is betting against lithium.
Half the market.
Looks like lithium might need to recharge its reputation. After all, sodium ion batteries are nearly as good as lithium, and salt is much cheaper and easier to access than lithium. So maybe it's not that surprising that CATL and some other companies are getting ready to manufacture huge numbers.
Now the negative about sodium is it's a heavier ion. So the coffee mug. I was going to pull up a periodic table to look at the weight difference, but my coffee mug from this morning. Lithium atomic weight is, lighting is bad, 6.94, so 7, and sodium is 22.99, so 23, 7 and 23. So sodium's about 3 times as heavy as lithium. Let's pull up Daddy Google and check what percent weight of a lithium ion battery is lithium. Like 6 to 7%. Oh, cathode is 20 to 25, but the cathode isn't. Yeah. Okay. Let's call it 6, 7, maybe up to 10%, but more likely 6 to 7% of the weight of the battery is lithium. Hey, let's just go with 7 because that's what lithium weighs, molecular weight. So you're bumping that up by about to 23. So you're going to make the battery 15, 16, 18, 20% heavier, depending on the ratio. So for cars, which you don't want to add a bunch of extra weight for non-improved performance, you're going to want to, and even more so if we get electric boats or electric airplanes, which are even more weight dependent, you definitely want to stay with lithium. But for stationary storage, which is really starting to get big, cheaper raw material sodium makes perfect sense. Okay, I see what they're talking about here. Let's see if that works. Okay, back to the video. Sorry.
Numbers of them.
Sorry, I had to go off on my tangent and try and figure it out.
Lithium. So maybe it's not that surprising that CATL and some other companies are getting ready to manufacture huge numbers of them in preparation for what could be a massive market shift. But is sodium really the future of energy storage? Or is it just another battery technology destined to live in lithium-ion shadow? I'm Matt Ferrell. Welcome to Undecided. This video is brought to you by Surfshark. CATL is the world's largest battery manufacturer. And for perspective, in 2023, CATL's batteries made up around 40% of the global market. That's absolutely massive, and a good reason to take the company's views on battery tech seriously. So it's pretty interesting
Yep.
that in a November
When I
2024
saw
interview with
CATL, I'm
Reuters,
like, okay,
CATL co-founder Robin
they're
Zhang
not being
pushed back on
stupid.
the idea that solid-state batteries are the next big thing. Instead, he argued that sodium-ion batteries are the better.
Solid state batteries. Technology that's been 5 years away for the last 40 years. I'm going to believe it's a thing when there's one working in a product that sells. Until that happens, solid state is just a dream. So,
bet. One with the potential to replace up to half the market that CATL currently dominates.
okay.
And this isn't just talk. CATL already offers a sodium battery as part of its Freevoy battery pack, a hybrid system combining lithium and sodium batteries for long-range EVs. That's surprising, considering sodium's biggest drawback, its lower energy density. Usually means bulkier, heavier batteries. And in EVs, every ounce and inch matters. But CATL isn't stopping there. The company is set to launch a second-generation sodium battery later this year, claiming an energy density of over 200 watt-hours per kilogram. That's still below today's best lithium-ion batteries at around 300 watt-hours per kilogram, but it's a big leap from its predecessor at 160 watt-hours per kilogram, and a sign of serious progress. CATL isn't alone in this push. Companies worldwide are ramping up sodium-ion battery production.
So as they get more efficiently, this weight theoretically, could get to 240 watt-hours per kilogram with the same basic chemistry as lithium ions. Maybe 250, maybe close. Yeah, something like that. 250, 260 possibly, which, that 10% gap always has to be there because the sodium just weighs more than the lithium. Thanks to the mug of knowledge.
CATL isn't alone in this push. Companies worldwide are ramping up sodium-ion battery production, preparing for what could be a massive market shift. But are sodium batteries truly the next big thing? And if so, what potential does Robin Zhang and the rest of the industry see in them? The concept behind sodium-ion batteries, or SIBs, is pretty straightforward. Sodium behaves a lot like lithium, so SIBs share essentially the same structure as their lithium.
Yeah, they are right above each other on the periodic table. And those that know chemistry know if you go straight up or straight down, the thing is pretty much going to react similarly in most cases to the things above or below. So you get the same chemical reactions with a more common but heavier ion. So
lithium-ion cousins. They also have a comparable round-trip efficiency, or RTE, meaning that you get back nearly the same amount of energy that you put in. But there's a trade-off. SIBs are less energy dense than lithium-ion batteries, which has historically limited their applications. So why is the battery industry so excited about SIBs if they're almost as good as lithium but still lacking in key areas? Well, salt is a lot more accommodating. It's vastly more abundant. There's an entire ocean full of it. It's also easier to extract and doesn't require the destructive mining practices needed for lithium and other precious metals. All this makes SIBs cheaper, more sustainable, and less vulnerable to supply chain disruptions and geopolitical tensions.
yeah.
Beyond cost and sustainability, SIBs have other advantages. Their chemistry gives them excellent resistance to extreme temperatures. They're less prone to thermal runaway and actually perform better in cold conditions than lithium-ion batteries.
Okay, I did
Now,
not
to be
know
fair,
that.
thermal runaway is fairly rare in lithium-ion batteries. You won't have an issue unless you're dropping your laptop or taking a sledgehammer to it. But in large-scale energy storage where hundreds of batteries are packed together, safety matters. If you're setting up a solar farm in a hot, dry, wildfire-prone region, say the US Southwest or much of Australia, SIBs
Where
might
it
be the
makes
smarter,
sense.
safer choice.
Yeah.
That cold resistance is also why some in the EV industry are paying attention despite SIB's energy density shortcomings. In freezing temperatures, lithium ions can get lost on their way to the anode, plating onto the outside instead, which
Yeah.
lowers efficiency or even causes a short. Sodium batteries are more resistant to that problem. Most lithium
I did
batteries
not know
start
that.
struggling at negative 20 degrees Celsius or negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit, while CATL claims its second-gen sodium batteries can handle as low as negative 40 degrees Celsius, which is also negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Love
It's
that.
one reason the company is eyeing them for EVs. If the world's largest battery maker getting serious about SIBs isn't enough to grab your attention, just wait until you hear what the second largest is up to.
Yes, it did grab my attention. That's why I'm watching and reacting to this video, because I'm like, wait. Why are they saying half the market might shift? Okay. And yeah, I did not know about the better in cold temperatures or less thermal potential for thermal runaway. Definite benefits, but on the fringes.
So if the world's largest battery maker getting serious about SIBs isn't enough to spark your curiosity, let's talk about the world's second largest.
It did.
That would be BYD,
BYD's
CATL's
number two.
longtime rival, and BYD is going big on sodium. The company broke ground on a new gigafactory last year, and once it's fully
LG or
operational in
Panasonic are 3
2027,
and 4.
it's expected to crank out 30 gigawatt hours of sodium-ion batteries per year. Looks like BYD is really seasoning the competition. And this is part of BYD's push
Nice
to diversify its energy storage portfolio and drive down the cost of sodium batteries. The company says its SIBs are already on track to match the price of standard lithium iron phosphate or LFP batteries by 2025, this year.
Right,
And
that's this
eventually,
year.
as the technology matures, they could be up to 70% cheaper. BYD is also rolling out its first utility-scale sodium battery energy storage system, or
70% cheaper? They take more than 50% out of the market at that number. They take the whole market if they're 70% cheaper. I would guess 20% cheaper. If BYD gets there, that is game changing.
BYD is also rolling out its first utility-scale sodium battery energy storage system, or BESS, the MC Cube SIB energy storage system. What a coincidence, MC Cube was my DJ name. The system boasts a power output of 1,155 kilowatts and a storage capacity of 2.3 megawatt hours. That's solid, but still lower than the average lithium-ion BESS, which typically holds around 5 megawatt hours. So the big questions are, will sodium's unique advantages help it compete with existing lithium systems? And will BYD's predicted price drop actually happen?
That
If
is
either
a big
of these
question.
is yes, expect to see a lot more SIBs in the near future. But for now, we wait. And BYD isn't the only one making moves in China. Zhejiang Hunan Energy recently announced the registration and coding of its own sodium-ion production line. The company can now produce 4 gigawatt hours of sodium-ion battery cells and modules. And this is just phase one. The company claims it will scale up to 20 gigawatt hours of sodium-ion production capacity. Of course, they still haven't set a firm deadline for that, so take that with a few grains of sodium.
What's the time frame? Yep.
Deadline for that, so take that with a few grains of sodium.
Sodium.
But it's another
Grains of
signal that the
salt.
industry is shifting. And given that the planet isn't running out of salt anytime soon,
No.
I sure hope it does. Of course, China isn't the only player pushing ahead with sodium-ion tech. In the US, California-based Natron Energy has developed SIBs that allegedly charge and discharge 10 times faster than lithium-ion batteries. With an estimated lifespan of 50,000 cycles, they sound very promising. But there's a catch. Natron hasn't really
Very promising tech does not come to fruition the majority of the time. So, as he said, take it with a few grains of sodium. I didn't say it at the start. Matt Ferrell does pretty good videos and is almost always well researched and well put together. So, and just funny enough in a nerdy sense.
released weight-based energy density figures, which is typically a weak spot for SIBs. A 2022 Chemical and Engineering News article put their energy density at just 70 watt-hours per kilogram, on the very low end of the sodium-ion spectrum. While that's fine for stationary storage applications like data centers and telecoms, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence in their EV ambitions. What really makes Natron worth discussing, though, is its push for full-scale commercial production. The company is building its own sodium-ion gigafactory in Edgecombe County, North Carolina, with a planned production capacity of 24 gigawatt hours. And this isn't Natron's first rodeo. Last year, it opened a smaller sodium battery factory in Holland, Michigan, currently the only one of its kind in the US, at least until the larger facility comes online. At full capacity, the Holland plant is expected to produce about 600 megawatts of sodium-ion batteries annually. It's unclear how much it's producing right now, but Natron says battery shipments will begin this June. Though SIBs are finally coming into their own, researchers haven't stopped pushing the envelope. Over in the US, scientists from Dinka Lab have developed a sodium-ion battery using a new organic cathode made from, I'm not even going to try to say this because it would short-circuit my brain. I'm just going to call it TAC. I'm not even going to try to say this because it would
Bis tetra benzoquine. Bis tet. the minnow part in the middle, benzoquine is the end. Yeah, organic chemistry is a mess. Don't try and pronounce it.
Short circuit my brain. I'm just going to call it TAC. So what's an organic cathode and what does it do for a battery? Well, here organic means that a cathode is made from readily available non-metallic elements, stuff like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Lithium-ion battery anodes are often made from similar materials using graphite, but making the cathode organic as well is a big deal. Normally, cathodes rely on metals that are scarce and difficult to mine, like cobalt. A fully organic battery where both the anode and the cathode are metal-free could be a game changer. So why aren't all batteries using organic cathodes already? Well, the problem is that they tend to dissolve into the electrolyte, degrading both the electrolyte and the cathode. But according to the Dinka group, TAC is completely insoluble, highly conductive, and boasts a high energy density. In fact, it could rival traditional cobalt-based cathodes at roughly 1/3 the cost. TAC was originally developed for lithium-ion batteries, but the results sparked a new idea. What if they applied it to sodium-ion batteries? Since one of sodium's biggest drawbacks is the lower energy density, why not address that weakness while keeping all the cost and sustainability benefits? Adapting the cathode for sodium batteries took a year of refinement, as the researchers had to tweak design principles that didn't translate easily from lithium-ion technology. But the results surprised them. In the words of lead author Tianyang Chen, the binder we chose, carbon nanotubes, facilitates the mixing of TAC crystallites and carbon black particles, leading to an homogeneous electrode. The carbon nanotubes closely wrap around TAC crystallites and interconnect with them. Both of these factors promote electron transport within the electrode bulk, enabling an almost 100% active material utilization, which leads to almost theoretical maximum capacity. Now, unlike the other sodium batteries we've been discussing, this breakthrough is still in the lab. There's no telling when or if it will be commercialized, pass third-party tests, or overcome all of the usual hurdles. But it's still an exciting development for both lithium and sodium batteries. And for what it's worth, the Dinka Group's initial research was funded by Lamborghini. So if this tech does make it to market, a luxury automaker is already in line, ready to capitalize on it. While the future looks bright for SIBs, beware. Just because it glitters doesn't mean it's, well, salt. In November of 2023, Swedish manufacturer Northvolt unveiled its own sodium battery, boasting a respectable 160 watt-hours per kilogram energy density. It's respectable, but not exactly rock salt solid. The company had already made waves with its nickel manganese cobalt formula, but like many others, it aimed to expand. After launching its first gigafactory in Sweden and setting up additional facilities in Poland and Germany, Northvolt set its sights on North America, planning a battery factory in Montreal. But by the following November, Northvolt had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Since this is a restructuring type of bankruptcy, it's not as dire as it sounds. Northvolt says its Swedish operations will continue as usual, and its German and North American subsidiaries, funded separately, aren't affected. I'm not an international corporate financial law channel, so I won't pretend to know what all the implications are.
Neither do I.
Chapter 11 is complicated, or so I'm told.
Yeah. Even though I do like Grammarly.
On one hand, Northvolt...
As an engineer, Grammarly helps. Engineer, not an expert on finance, but there is 4 CPAs in my family. Father, wife, brother, sister-in-law. I've absorbed a little bit of understanding, but I'm not going to comment because international finance is complicated. So.
But Chapter 11 is complicated, or so I'm told. On one hand, Northvolt claims this voluntary reorganization will give them access to $145 million in cash collateral and $100 million in debtor-in-possession financing. On the other hand, bankruptcy, no matter the type, doesn't exactly inspire confidence. So is this just a financial finessing or a sign of deeper trouble? Guess we'll find out. There are still some lingering issues with sodium batteries. Despite what CATL, BYD, and Natron are saying, I remain skeptical about its role in EVs. The biggest hurdle is energy density. Sodium-ion battery packs simply don't pack as much power per pound as lithium does. And while they use cheaper materials, their lower energy density means the cost per unit of stored energy actually ends up higher. The savings from cheaper components might eventually balance this out, but for now, it's complicated. There's also an economic twist. Sodium batteries gained traction during the lithium shortage, but now, well, lithium prices have plummeted, down 70% in the past 3 years due to oversupply. That price drop has weakened the financial case for sodium, at least for now. In a February 2025 Science article, battery chemist Dan Steingart from Columbia University pointed out that sodium-ion manufacturers are still too small to benefit from economies of scale. In a January 2025 Stanford study examining SIB's path to market success, noted that when or if they'll become cost competitive is still highly uncertain. And of course, lithium still has an iron phosphate grip on multiple industries. Even with SIB's potential drag-and-drop compatibility, shifting manufacturing and consumer demand will take time. This creates a catch-22. Sodium batteries will only get cheaper when they're widely produced, but they'll never hit that scale until they're cheaper. So where does that leave SIBs? Honestly, I think it's a pretty exciting spot. Too often when covering new battery tech, I have to pump the brakes with the usual disclaimers. It's still in research or it's years away from commercialization. But sodium-ion batteries, they're already rolling out, backed by some of the biggest battery makers on the planet. This might be one of the few times a salty market outlook is actually a good thing. That alone puts them high on the technology readiness level, arguably around a 9 for BESS applications, and maybe a few steps behind that for the others.
Yeah.
Yes, SIBs still have hard applications, and maybe...
For airplanes, no. For EVs, maybe. For storage, very possibly. And if they get those costs down through scale, probably. Well, something to watch over the next few years.
Maybe a few steps behind that for the others. Yes, SIBs still have hurdles, but compared to the other emerging battery technologies, these challenges seem much more manageable. If they pull it off, sodium ion might just be the seasoning our energy grid needs. But what do you think? Do you think sodium has a shot at catching on? Jump in the comments and let me know. And be sure to listen to my follow-up podcast, Still to be Determined, while I keep this conversation going. Thanks as always to my patrons for your continued support and helping me to keep the channel going. Keep your mind open, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.
Nice video. We'll just pause it. Okay, that was interesting. Cost potentially lower, but higher for now. Weight higher. Energy density, that's the more technical term, but energy density lower forever. But you have some other benefits that I did not know about. The lower chance of thermal runaway and the better in very cold temperatures. So it definitely looks like they have a place, whether that place is going to be 10% of the market or 50%, or if, as BYD predicted, they get 70% cheaper than 90% of the market. We'll see. That's something to follow, to pay attention to over the next few years. Well, that was a really interesting video. Post in the comments if you, like I said, this isn't my area of expertise, but I had a decent amount of information going in. If I got anything wrong, please let me know. And also let me know of any other videos you want me to react to. I have a handful more on the queue, but always looking for new, interesting topics. Goodbye.